This is a weekly roundup presented by the Conversation Project, and I am Jay Cleveland Payne. I'm going to present to you right here 12 stories from past week that caught my attention based on your conversational engagement on our Conversation Project feeds on Facebook and X the last week. That's going from the 7th of March to the 14th of March, Friday to Friday. So that makes this the roundup for the week ending March 15th. Buttons are getting in the way today. But we have 12 stories to talk about, including stuff from the brand new PM of Canada, more details on the loss, the actual death of Gene Hackman, and of course, Donald Trump, because there's always Donald Trump in the mix. Plus, 9 other stories, many of them involving Donald Trump, that got my attention. Now, we'll explain sort of the feed stuff. We'll explain sort of the inter stuff. These are all stories that we talked about throughout the week in our daily show we do on this channel called Things You Might Not Have Heard. Every single morning, we give you 10 to 8 stories based on the day of things to go into that you guys deem we're worthy of talking about. And these are stories from the past week that need either a bit of an update or maybe a reminder that we talked about it, or they're just so big out there, we just have to say, hey, this is what happened. It's a week in review, and sometimes these weeks seem like the longest weeks in the world, and it has been a lot going forward. So check out what we have going forward, 12 stories for you here. We're going to bring to you right now, remind you that our sponsor is Ground News. Go to this, it's theconversationproject.com/ground news for more details on how to get more great news into your life. We use them as a daily source, and we have a great deal for you if you use that, if you're a news nerd going forward with this one. And our website, this is theconversationproject.com. Our email address, theconversationinbox@gmail.com. We'll explain all those much later. Plus, many calls to action to get these stories here. That you helped us get these stories here. These aren't just random smatterings of stories. We'll explain how those get here in a bit. Let's start off, because we have a long way to go, with headline number 1. And it is Canada's Liberal Party selects Mark Carney to succeed Justin Trudeau. The Liberal Party has made a new leader for the party. Justin Trudeau, of course, resigned as leader of the party, which gave him the resignation as the prime minister. Now leader of the party is now Mark Carney. Mark Carney has a background in banking and finance, so he's really new to politics, but he has been an advisor to Mr. Trudeau for quite some time. Let's start with the tenure beginning right off the bat with the U.S., because that's where things are going. That's why Trudeau was leaving, although he was gaining strength and gaining power and gaining popularity with the tariff battle between Canada and U.S. Now, Carney came out, swinging early, Lily swinging early, saying basically in hockey and in life, Canada will win, and if they drop the gloves, being us, U.S., Canada has no problem dropping gloves and going forward. We will see how this works out as they go forward, but the biggest thing they have right now is the way they work in parliamentary system. Carney is the leader of the leading party right now, but elections need to come around pretty soon for the various factions to get together and put together an actual government. There will be elections very soon. I think they could kind of get away without them, but they're going to make that happen going forward. Now, bear with me. I'm sort of rambling. I'm not reading the script directly for what's going on here, but Canada aims to bolster its economic resilience and diplomatic efforts around the world, specifically with the United States. That may mean working past and running some things with Donald Trump or finding some sort of resolution that does not include him changing his mind 2 minutes later, which is sort of the problem with Donald Trump. But everyone right now, Canada has a very spicy, very aggressive, very able new prime minister, a very able new leader of the party. But what's going to happen is he's got to get into the real deal of politics, because he does know banking, does know finance, does know how things work. It's the political aspects, and he has plenty of advisors to make things go forward. Our second story, and as I said before, they're in no particular order. They just sort of came about from big stories, and we mix them around in the spot. So some stories we'll have may seem like they're sort of adjacent to others that they should be. Some stories are kind of out there. So don't let the order of the stories mean anything to you. These are just 12 stories from the past 5 days worth of stuff we had to talk about. Now, here's one we talked about a bit that got a bit heated in some discussion, because it's one of those head-scratching things, and one of the things that we talk about that are unintended consequences of what are the intentions of the Trump administrations, what they think they want to do because their agenda says so, or they think they have a mandate. But all these ripple effects just make people scratch their heads, and people who are not Trump followers, not Trump supporters, just sort of give them, in the sense me, a person who's not a Trump supporter, more reason to shake my fist and say, why the hell are we doing this? The Pentagon removed various photos from various platforms and various archives for violating DEI guidelines. One of those were many photos of the Enola Gay. Not a person named Enola Gay, but the Enola Gay, which is a airplane. Because of the removal of content related to diversity, equity, and inclusion platforms, this from the order from Donald Trump, about 26,000 images and posts were deleted. Some of these included many images, the World War II aircraft, the Enola Gay. The B-29, I know I've mispronounced that in many videos before, but the B-29 bomber, named after Paul Tibbets' mother, Enola Gay Tibbets, is historically significant for dropping the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. The inclusion of these photos in the purge, it stems from the word gay in the metadata. Essentially, the title of the video is, "This is a picture of the Enola Gay." And so it got purged. The DEI content removal extends beyond Enola Gay images, including many things that include diversity in the military milestones. Thus, stuff like we talked about the Tuskegee Airmen being pulled out, the first black military pilots, DEI stuff. Things that have gay in them, because it's there, well, along as many historically things that include women and other minorities. Critics are arguing that the extensive content purge will result in loss of crucial historic documentation and diminished recognition of contributions made by diverse groups within the military. Think about the shoe boxes you have in your closet if you're old enough to have shoe boxes of pictures. Every so often you go through the box and you find other pictures that mean something to you. If everything's on a clear digital content that gets purged so often, those pictures, those memories, that history gets removed. Removal of such content could impact the preservation of military history and acknowledgement of progress in diversity and inclusion. Also, ongoing debate about the balance between adhering to policy directives and maintaining actual comprehensive historical records. Knowing things as they happened, as they were true, as opposed to how we propagandize stuff. And yes, we propagandize things when we put out the big pictures and big, bold statements. But sometimes you got to go back to the archives and understand how things actually worked. At number 3, Senator Marco Rubio says that 83% of the USAID programs cut following the 6-week government purge are done for. Marco Rubio says about 83% of the Agency for International Development, the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, I should say it properly, the programs are now gone, are now cut, the contracts are dead, everything is said and done. 5,200 of the 6,200 programs will be effectively no longer. Now, what's remaining, the 17% that remains, are now going to be worked directly under the Secretary of State's office. He will now be in charge of what's left there. But all the funds, all the contracts, all the things that are there are gone. What happens to those funds? Well, to be determined. But extensive cuts raise concerns on global health concerns. A lot of things, including various other programs which have been recently stopped, are done. Food-bearing programs have stopped or are done. Programs that actually pay us, U.S. citizens here, to help fund things like medicines and foods and things like that are done. So the backlash, the unintended consequences of killing all these USAID programs is not just we're not sending condoms to Gaza anymore, which I don't think we actually were sending condoms to Gaza in the first place. It really is a matter of cutting programs that were really effective for many people in many places, and essentially was the way to manage soft power. That is influence power, not just saber rattling, saying we're going to beat you up if something happens. Various job losses in various places here in the States, including funding for research, funding for food programs, money that went to grants for farmers and for public housing and things like that, are now gone because they are now gone. Many people are shouting to the rooftops on getting rid of all this waste and fraud, because all they were fraud waste folks that were spending money on random contracts for hippie woke stuff. The problem is it was paying other people to maintain those hippie woke things, which also come to a sense of empathy, inclusion, that word again, and trying to make the world a little bit better so that there's less people in dire straits, so there's less people angry at us throwing stones and things like that. That's kind of where the AAID, USAID part came from. We no longer have that, essentially. We basically gutted it down. And if we have a new administration trying to fix it, rebuild it, looks like it's near impossible, which is pretty much the point. The fourth story for this morning. Department of Justice actually launched an investigation to major egg producers to see why prices of eggs seem to be skyrocketing. Now, to be fair, Eggs in the last 2 weeks have started to come down. The price of eggs are now down, so there is some regression to the massive hype. But the hype's still there. Prices are still much higher than it should be since last year. From the Robot Editor, the DOJ is initiating an investigation leading into egg producers, such as Maine Foods and Rose Acre Farms, to make sure that they're not doing with price fixing or supply restrictions in the recent egg prices. Eggs have doubled over the past year, about $4.95 per dozen in January, from being about half that last January. And the surge led to shortages in grocery stores and a strain on everyone needing eggs. Now, the producers have their reasons for saying they cost so much. Avian influenza outbreak, bird flu, meant they had to cull 160 million birds since 2020. Less birds to lay eggs, less eggs to bird. Less birds to lay eggs, less eggs to sell. Not to bird. There you go. Well, problem is, many farm action groups say that while they started killing a lot of birds a while back, the bird supply should actually have rebounded or gotten better by now. That doesn't really explain the extent to the shortages or the high costs. Notably, Maine and other producers have been fined $53 million for price fixing in several federal courts before, so maybe they're doing some things back and forth. These are trials for things from 2023. Basically, as soon as bird flu came to being and the egg prices went up because of shortages, as things sort of normalized, some folks did try to keep the prices inflated a bit longer than they should have. So the DOJ is looking directly right now to see if they're doing it again. Also proposed was a $1 billion initiative aimed at controlling the spread of avian flu to reduce egg prices. Essentially, work on keeping bird flu down so we have less issues with that. That's a totally separate issue. Outside of DOJ's world, this is something that was led by a Agriculture Secretary, Brooke Rollins, to try to get things going on that end to keep things going forward. But right now, we're looking to see if there's some sort of criminal or legal action to deal with egg producers, the folks who are putting eggs into the stores, to see if they're actually colluding or fixing prices before they get there so that you are forced to picture what you have, get what you're going to get. Wendy Williams is in the news again this week. She's been a staple for about 6 weeks since she had a chance to talk to people outside the world to say she's not as bad as people think she are. She's being railroaded. Her assisted living situation, her conservatorship, is all bad, and she should be let go. Happening this week, she was actually released from her assisted living incident because she dropped a note out of a window saying, "Help, Wendy." It was that simple. She dropped a note on the window, so police came to do a wellness check. They pulled her out of the place. They took her to a hospital, and she has been evaluated. As far as I know, she's not been taken back to that facility, but over the past 5-6 days since this has gone through, she's had some evaluations for health. She's had some mental evaluations. She says, that being Wendy Williams, says she has passed with flying colors. She should be released. She's openly contested the claims of cognitive impairment, asserting that she's not incapacitated and expressing dissatisfaction with her current living situation. The living assisted facility she stays in is called restrictive, and basically she wants her autonomy. She wants to be back out there. What's going on? One of the biggest things that are at issue is with her actual family. It's not a member of her family who's running the conservatorship, not a member of her family who's in charge of her stuff. Her family doesn't get much access to her. They don't get many questions to her. They're trying to see what's going on. Essentially, she's addressed past struggles with addiction, and basically this conservatorship and this treatment of her is basically helping her stay sober, stay sane, stay healthy. However, she says she's fine. She says she doesn't need this, and she says the person running the show is also ruining her money, which tends to happen with high-power conservatorships and people in charge of things like this. She's going to stay in our thoughts and prayers and our notions as we can. As long as you keep her conversational, you keep engaging in her stories, we'll make sure we're talking about it on these platforms specifically. Our sixth story for today is on the South Carolina execution by firing squad. The first time in 15 years they have used that method. Happening on March the 7th. Bragg Sigmon, death by firing squad. First time it was used, as I said, in 15 years in the United States. 67-year-old Sigmon was convicted in 2001 from the murders of his ex-girlfriend's parents, that's being David and Gladys Lurk in Greenville County. He did not get the chance to murder his girlfriend, although he captured her and tried to do things to her. She escaped. This was why we have this trial here. He chose firing squad over lethal injection because issues with the drugs, and electric chair because he was afraid of that being cruel and unusual punishment. What's turning into a trend as more states are opening up the chance for firing squads, and more states potentially will put it into their books, happened on this day where the execution took place at the Broad River Correctional Facility in Columbia. Sigmon was strapped to a chair, hooded, fitted with a target over his chest. 3 volunteers or prison employees were stationed 15 feet away. They had rifles and they had basically covering so you could not see them. You could not see the executioners. They all fired at 6:05 p.m., essentially right at the same time. He was pronounced dead at 6:08. A very quick and simple and oddly effective way of the actual punishment. So the debate over ethics and capital punishment are there. The methods, of course, employed are there. Firing squad executions, seen as archaic and humane, but from the actual descriptions, it was swift, it was reliable, it was pretty easy, and there was no I won't say pain because I don't went there, but there was no extra stuff. There wasn't, waiting for someone to die and catch fire with the electric chair, or waiting for the drugs to kick in a sense, for lethal injection. This is only the 4th firing squad execution since 1976, and the last one happening in 2010. So far it's rare, but many states are thinking of adding this to their repertoire. Many states are actually thinking this will be their primary method going forward. Quick pause for the news stories. We have 6 more to go, 6 down. We want to give you a chance to kind of get an understanding of how we get these stories, how we get these from the world and from you specifically. So what we're looking for is more people in our queue, in our pool of people to get information from. And we get your information. We'll explain it in full after you do all the headlines, with you engaging in news stories on our feeds. Just like you're watching this here on Facebook or on X or on YouTube, we get your conversational ideas from things here and from things on X and Facebook. That gives us the ideas what to pick there. So we need you engaged. We need you here. If you like what you're seeing as a news coverage, these are stories that may have not been covered very well or not at all this week based on how you get your news, your silo, if you will. Like what you're seeing. Click like on the video so that I can see what stories we're doing well. If I did a good job this week, I'll see the likes and go for that one. If the algorithm sees the likes, it will share the stories we do. We'll share the videos and our content with other people, and so they will get a chance to see more of our stuff. We'll get more engagement. That's how things work here with engagement. If you know people who would enjoy this type of coverage, or maybe want to enjoy, if you will, we take that as well. Share it with them directly. Hopefully they will like and share as well. If you're not getting our content directly into your feeds, subscribe to it so you get it on your X feed, in your Facebook feed, on YouTube, and in various other places. We have audio podcasts. We have our email newsletter. We have venues places. We have shorter feeds for quick things out there. Like, share, and subscribe, and help us grow the News Nerd Nation so we can all be a part of this conversation. This is not a monologue. This is a conversation. We ask for your input before we talk about stories that are conversational, and then you tell us exactly what you think about them. We got, fortunately and unfortunately, the information on the details on the death of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. It's unfortunate because of what happened. It's fortunate because we have closure and answers. The actor was found, along with his wife, on February 26th. The renowned actor Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, found deceased in their Santa Fe home, along with one of their pets, one dog that was deceased. Later, we found more details on that. We'll get to that in a moment. Hackman succumbed to hypertensive and atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, basically heart issues, with advanced Alzheimer's disease as part of the contributing factor. Arakawa's death is a bit more disturbing. She died from the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, which is contracted through rodent exposure within the home. Somehow she inhaled this virus, these things from essentially rodent excrement inside the home someplace, and died somewhere before this death. Basically, about 10 days or so before this death happened, before they were found, I should say. And when she passed away, she also passed away. They just returned back from the vet with one of their pets. And because their pet had a procedure and could not be roaming around the house, this dog was in a carrier. So the dog could not be released and basically died of starvation. Now, Gene Hackman did not die of hantavirus. He died of a heart issue basically about a few days, a week later. What happened, as they believe, is because Hackman was suffering from severe issues with his Alzheimer's, and Arakawa, Betsy, was there to take care of him. She was not there. He essentially wandered the house for days, and essentially was basically partly starving himself, but essentially succumbed to heart disease. This is a very, very, I don't know how preventable it is based on this one. It probably was. We don't know exactly how the actual hantavirus, how Betsy was exposed to that one. So there's that. But it's just one of those things that it's so ultra sad just in going into details of it. It's just so ultra sad. One, that Hackman had to suffer from Alzheimer's in the first place. One reason why he basically quit acting 20 years ago was he wasn't feeling well, and apparently he was able to survive this long with the disease based on the health and the health of his wife taking care of him. But the ending to the story is terrible. We've given him plenty of flowers for his work, and we're giving him plenty of flowers for his contributions. But right now, after learning all these details, there's really not much we can do other than sort of take in a breath and make sure we're checking out on people who we know aren't doing so great. If we have older gentlemen, older women in our families, make sure you sit down and have a conversation with them and see how they're doing. If they're being taken care of by caretakers, maybe they're stubborn and take care of themselves. That's fine. If people are taking care of them, make sure the caretakers are in good health, good standing, good spirits. This was an incident that was essentially bound to happen. I hate to put it that way. That's a terrible thing to say, but it just was what was going to happen. And we just have to digest and take it as it is. There's really not much to do to talk about it. And it's a hard transition to the next story. The next story is a bit sensational. So we're just going to move on to the next story as we continue in today's broadcast. So for story number 8 for this week, another story that was maybe not exactly one of the most glaringly bigger stories, but it leads to a larger narrative that's being done in the administration of Donald Trump for Trump 47. Trump appointed Laura Ingraham and Maria Bartiromo to Kennedy Center board. So Trump put the Fox News host, that's Ingraham, and Fox Business host, that's Bartiromo, on the board of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. This move is part of a broader overhaul of the center's leadership, which included Trump assuming the role of the chairman and replacing several board members. So the appointments have sparked some significant reactions within the arts community. Notably, a big deal because the Broadway musical Hamilton actually canceled its performances at the Kennedy Center. Actually, I think before they were actually put in there. I think this was in the process. But they had concerns over the institution's nonpartisan values being no more nonpartisan with the leadership changes that are still in place. I think there's still some people who aren't quite placed yet, but this is the two big names that basically Trump knows from TV and doing interviews, put them on because they know arts. New board is comprised of Trump allies, as you can see. They're aiming to usher in a golden age in arts and culture, dealing with America's actual vision of their culture. Divesting of the center's offerings that are more broad to appeal to a more general offering, or to be more specific, less diverse to broad audiences. Basically something more vanilla as opposed to 31 flavors, because vanilla, I love vanilla. Vanilla is great. I'd usually pick vanilla over other things, but just because it's vanilla doesn't mean it's the only thing that everybody will want. Having other offerings make it something better. Here's one that we've been working with that we're still sort of in the phase. Trump is asking the Supreme Court for help, which he'll do a lot in his term. This one specifically for ending birthright citizenship. The petition was sent on the 13th of March. That petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court to permit enforcement of an executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship for children born to the United States to non-citizen parents. The order was signed on January 20th, and it seeks to reinterpret the Fourth Amendment, its citizen clause, which has traditionally granted citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil. The administration argues that the current interpretation incentives illegal immigrations for birth tourism, basically showing up here to have a baby so that baby is anchored, you may hear that before, to the United States and keeps those parents here because they have a child here who's a citizen. So it makes it easier for them to stick around and gain citizenship or just stick around in a legal status because their child is American. The executive order has faced multiple legal challenges, pretty much why they're trying to send it up to the Supreme Court to basically say, let's do this right here. Many challenges from many judges saying no. It's pretty clear, pretty much where it is, that if you're born here in the United States, you are a citizen. That's what it's meant to be. That's what it says. In response to the administration's acting Solicitor General, Cheryl Hayes filed this emergency application requesting the Supreme Court to limit the scope on this one to basically keep from disrupting the executive order's functions. Essentially, the boss wants to get things done, and he can't because these pesky judges are saying no. This would have profound implications for the interpretation of the 14th Amendment and the future of birthright citizenship in the United States. Legal experts note that altering the established understanding of the Citizens Clause would be highly challenging, as has been in the law and basically set in stone by judges for 150 years. There is no debate on it. It's pretty much done, except Trump wrote executive order saying, I don't want to do it anymore. And the judges are like, well, you can't because it's pretty much done. You can't change it. Obviously, we'll see if the court takes this up and if there's a resolution for this, yay or nay. We'll just have to kind of watch and see. This was a throwaway story. This was a toss-up story that got a little bit of extra run because of people, essentially conservative blogger type folks, turning it into something a bit bigger than it was. And then it turned into a mainstream story after a while. And we got to it kind of late. But you guys still wanted to engage in when we got to it. We have an update because it's gotten even more severe. During a Virginia High School League championship at Liberty University, IC Norcom High School senior Elenia Everett was involved in an incident where her baton struck Brookville High School junior Khalid Tucker during the 4x200 relay race. Video footage shows Everett's baton making contact with Tucker's head, leading Tucker to drop her baton and move off the track. She was later diagnosed with a concussion and a possible skull fracture. Following the incident, Everett was charged with misdemeanor assault and battery. She maintains that the contact was accidental, attributing to a loss of balance during the race. Everett has faced lots of backlash, including death threats and racial slurs, since the video circulated online. In response, the Portsmouth NAACP defended Everett, highlighting the status as an honor student, urging against premature judgments, reminding folks that she is a teenager and to back off this. The incident has elicited some strong reactions from the community itself, as Tucker's family is expressing disappointment over the lack of direct apology from Everett directly. Essentially, she didn't really apologize. The team didn't really apologize when it happened. And only now that we're dealing with the charges adding up that she's really being vocal about this and trying to be a bit dismissive. But in the time and the terms all ahead of time, there was nothing there. Attempts by Everett to reach out via social media were reportedly unsuccessful. The Virginia High School League is conducting an investigation and has upheld the decision to disqualify IC Norcom High School from the event totally. We're not getting away from this, and from the comments that you guys have, and apparently you have zaprudered this film and checked out other views, I'm going to say the majority of the people who are responding to this are saying she just seems to be a dangerous runner. It just seems to be sort of her MO to kind of run in a way that is not controlled, and this was bound to happen. Unfortunately, it did, and it's there. There are some commenters that are giving her some support, and a lot of people who are saying, let's remember, these are high school girls. Let's settle this with the investigation. Let's see what happens and go from there and not completely ruin their lives in the process. In my statement I give all the times, I don't know who these people who think death threats really mean anything and dropping racial slurs when they're both involved are black, but it's what it is. Now, Southwest Airlines is ending the free check bag policy for everyone After 54 years of love, LUV, their stock price, the love is going away for the checked bags. Southwest Airlines is ending this policy for all passengers effectively May 28th. The airline will implement some checked badge fees for most travelers, though, aligning with practices from other major U.S. carriers. The baggage fees will basically still be around, except for people who are Rapid Rewards, A-List preferred members, and Business Select passengers. They will still get 2 checked bags. A-List members and Rapid Rewards credit card holders, if you have a credit card that has Southwest on it, will get 1 free check bag. Everyone else, all bags must be paid for checking, with no charges specifically has been levied yet, but this is going to happen. We're about 2 weeks away from this happening, so get ready, get ready, get ready. Southwest is facing a lot of customer backlash from a few things. Number one, they're getting rid of their open gate seating policy where everybody just run to a seat they want to. And now the Bag 5 free thing, something that they have actually touted for the bulk of their time as an airline, the 54 years they've had that, is going to be an issue. And many people are sort of shaking their fist at Southwest right now going forward. But the problem is airlines are losing money. We had a story this week, a few stories this week about planes, falling from the sky and catching fire. But one this week about airlines essentially saying the future of airline travel is not so great. Spirit Airlines is just coming out of bankruptcy to be another competitor in the fold where the actual numbers of flights, even though flight travel is still pretty much hell, the actual number of people taking flights, the actual people who want that right and who are looking for that review to get that inventory is lowering. So less people want to take flights, and more people are complaining about flights, and the costs are going up. Cost-effective options must come into play, meaning while the gate seating may not be a cost thing, the check bag thing is a cost-effective message. We'll see how it actually will affect the very soon, the recent additions on Southwest when it goes into effect in a few weeks, and if people will just sort of shrug their shoulders and get along and just go along with it, or eventually move on. And finally, we are using the graphic I used for the short video clip we had out there, because this was a story that I got a lot of praise for. It was one of the silliest, smallest stories out there that literally didn't get much play. Some people played it in various clips here because it just was something there early in the week, and I dropped it in there, and people just loved the story. Now, let's be fair. Prank calls to 911 are not good, but here in this sense, a case where just an innocent child being an innocent child and gave everybody a bit of a laugh, a bit of a guffaw to go forward, was enduring. This happened in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, where a 4-year-old boy dialed 911 to put a body check on his mom, who ate his ice cream, and wanted police response for being bad. The quote, "My mommy is being bad. Come and get my mommy." So they talked to the boy on the phone for a while to make sure that this was not code, this was not whatever. He was trying to escape and just say something, didn't have the words. His mother eventually picked up the phone and said, "Yes, I ate his ice cream. He's a little mad at me. That's probably why I called the police." After making sure everything was fine, officers actually went to the home at that moment to make sure that everything was good. They came back the next day and brought the child ice cream with sprinkles for him and him alone. None for mom, all for the boy. Crisis averted. Justice is served. Very, very cold. The Village of Mount Pleasant Police Department shared the story on social media, and it received some outpouring of positive comments, as we got when we shared it with you as well. Many folks appreciating the officer's kindness and sense of humor. They did their job. They took in a call. They went to check on the folks involved. They found out that it was just a child, a toddler, doing toddler things. And then they came back with an extra offer of kindness with ice cream for the young man. We are glad to have this as our 12th story, our final story. We don't get a chance to get a lot of funny, good stories to wrap things up or even mix into any things we had here. This was a wrap-up story of one past day this week in things you might have heard. We're wrapping up right now with this one. Hopefully, this young man will be a bit more judicious, if you will, with his calls to police, and this doesn't become a habit. But we're glad to have this story at least to end on a high note for the stories we have. We're going to go into the Conversation Project and our promos for ourselves and how we got these stories to talk about to you in this video or audio if you're listening to the audio podcast. But first, a quick pause to talk about Ground News, our sponsor. Ground News is a app. It is a website. It is a source of news. There are many sources of news out there, and you have plenty of sources. But the problem with all of our sources, myself included, is that they have a reason to exist, whether it's to spread a point, whether it's a pure bias potential, whether it's to make money. And so they will do what they can with whatever slant they are to keep people siloed to them, keep people who want news from them. They have conservative and liberal-leaning news, which is the basic way to put it. And there are some places that do stuff that are try to be pure down the middle sources, where various people are now debating that. Ground News helps you get past that debate for yourself by offering a source and information behind every source of news stories. Take any headline that you see out there, a local one, a national one, a global one, and Ground News has the links to who's covering it and the sources of who they are and who may be behind them, what companies own them, how they usually report their stories. And you can get a grade on a story based on how it's being covered in the news. How many people on the blue side, the left side, how many people from the red side, the right, and white in the middle, red, white, and blue, because America, I guess. Inside, things that are mostly neutral, just sort of wire feed service type things. What you get from Ground News to get past the headlines and get past the actual opinions of the sources that you're seeing and see the opinions or see the pureness from just straight reporting from other sources. Ground News is offering 40% off its Vantage plan right now. And if you want to get in on this deal, use our link. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. And this is an affiliate link. We get a small commission from that one. Now, bias and information comes from all sides. And you may actually see a little bit of consternation in some of the sides that are supposed to be equal-handed. The AP is being shut out of many events right now due to the Trump administration not wanting to have them around because of Gulf of America, things like that. Things that seem silly, even though they serve up a global audience, so to try to keep things on a global level. You may believe they are biased as well, so you can check out what Ground News is saying about their actual coverage as well. And their blind spot feature is awesome. You click on the blind spot feature, you'll see stories that you may not have seen because it's being covered exclusively by a right-leaning sort of crowd or exclusively by a left-leaning sort of crowd, and you silo yourself in a different venue. Go behind the headlines and deeper into the actual debate on who's saying what with Ground News. Use our link for 40% off the Vantage plan at thisistheconversationproject.com/ground news. Get in on this great source today. This is the part where we promo ourselves, and then we'll give you a moment to learn about how to get more engaged with us at the Conversation Project. Our website home, thisistheconversationproject.com. Our email address, theconversationinbox@gmail.com. I'll bring this up again right now. We provide for you a conversation on news. You get a chance to pick the perspective that we're talking about. We put the choice in your hands on what stories to talk about. We send out in real time links to stories that are being covered throughout the day, literally throughout the day, 24/7, about every 50 minutes or so on our feeds on Facebook and X. And you engage in those stories, and from those engagements, we get the stories we talk about. It's a conversation, not a monologue, me picking the trending stories. These are stories that you say, oh, this would be great to talk about. I didn't hear much about this. Let's talk more about this one for the world. Before we go into all of those calls to actions, first, pause for hype for our partners. These people offer up financial stuff. They offer up actual money to help us grow and continue with the Conversation Project. It's still a small project. We still don't have a lot going on. We can use more partners. So if you want to be a partner, there are links at our partnership page at our website. And of course, it's via Buy Me a Coffee, buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne, and see the tiers there. Spare change, we have Joy Winters for a cup of coffee level, Harold Braxton, Colby Green, and Eldon Kidd. And we're still looking for our first pot of coffee level. It'd be great if you wanted to be that person. You deem the news and commentary that we provide for you as valid, as good to see, good to hear, good to watch. We need your help. This is a labor, and if you're watching this on YouTube specifically, because you see creators of all bents, many of those are backed by sponsors like you, partners like you, Patreon helpers like you, people who actually fund to help them grow more stuff. We get lots of comments, lots of concerns on things going forward. And we do this with the help of people who, the main thing is, follow us on the feeds and do stuff, because it's a thing. And it's something I would do in some level, some fashion, whether or not doing ever. But we'd like to up the production value. We like to do this thing, have this take better care of itself. And I'm going to be honest, I'd like this to be something I do 50, 60% of the time, not squeezing into the 25, 30% of times I have. Because I think this is a great platform. I think I am a voice that can offer up some great nuance and perspective, and I'm using it as a stepping stone. And I need this to be a bigger deal. And I need you to be a part of it so you get better news and better coverage and more news that you're looking to find. So consider being a partner. Go to buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne. Go to our partnerships page at our website. Visit more of our sponsors as well. That helps as well. Those are all affiliate links. We don't get paid unless you actually buy from them, and it costs you nothing extra to help things grow on that end. Now, the workings of the Conversation Project, the calls to action, all the things you need to do to keep things going. And eventually I'll move the camera over here and do some other things, and we'll get things settled in a better way. But what I need from y'alls is to do these things. Keep in mind our website. This is theconversationproject.com. Keep in mind our email address, conversationinbox@gmail.com. Email me with all the comments, concerns, the questions, whatever you want to have at me there, so we make those happen. What you're doing is going to the website, seeing some past episodes, seeing more calls to action, sponsors page, partners page, seeing our mission statements and our origin story, and learning more about us. Now, to keep things going for the conversation, what we provide is clips of various news articles all day, all the time as we do those. We promote the biggest pieces, the stuff from our feeds, in the shows that are daily called Things You Might Have Heard, 5 days a week, 10 stories on the Monday edition, 8 stories on the Tuesday through Friday edition. $58 stories total. Now, from that 58, on Friday afternoon, I'll go through sifting through the stories. Excuse me. And stories that seem heartwarming, like the story about the kid calling the cops on his mom, and stories that need to be sort of continued, such as the continuing resolution. Oh, we didn't get that. There's the continuing resolution. It got signed. We didn't even get that one. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how that happened. But things that need to be continued are things that are just sort of the starting points of things, such as the new prime minister, the new leader in Canada, and how that's going to go on. Stories that we need to readdress or update that didn't get updates, or things that are ongoing, such as the track star who's now facing battery charges. Get into this thing here. 12 stories from the week that were engaging by you that needed a bit extra touch or caught my attention in the voting. Some of the stories that had the various largest, biggest responses, including President Duarte, former President Duarte of the Philippines going to The Hague, and oh yeah, that OF story about the OF model that we did not get into because at some point you got to just back away, even though I'm just so obsessed with it. Those stories get posted every single day, every 50 minutes or so throughout the day on Facebook and X. Facebook.com/thisisconversationproject, X.com/th_conversation. Follow us on those feeds. Engage in the stories. The more you like, love, hate, share, respond to those stories, the better chance we have of talking about them Monday through Friday. And the more engaging, outlandish, or just important story it is, better chance we have of recapping again on this Saturday edition. Well, it's this weekend edition. I tape it on Saturdays mostly, so it's a Saturday edition. That's how we do this. We do this partially for me. This is a mental health check for me because I am a former paid news person, no longer paid news person, but a person who does not see the news in a way that I like it. So I'm trying to produce things that are more to my liking and more to the liking of people that I know are looking for. And it is for you as a service to give you a way to engage with people you may not have engaged before. Trust me, most of the comments I get tend to be leaning towards a conservative, right-leaning sort of response, which is fine because that way we get to go back and forth and see what we're talking about. But you can engage with people that you may not have engaged before because they come to something here. Follow us on our feeds. Email us with your comments on how we're doing things. Check out the website, eventually going back and forward, and consider partnership and sponsorships. consider them. With that, consider us done for the weekly roundup for the week ending March 15th of 2025. Now, real quick, because we did this, we had some disturbing stories this week, so we brought this up inside of Things You Might Have Heard. So I'm going to do it right now here. If you made it this far, we're glad you're here, and we want to make sure you're here much, much longer. If you're going through any sort of depression or sadness or things that just have you down, make a call, send a text to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988. Pick up your cell phone, call them, text them. Someone will pick up your call 24/7, and you can talk to someone in English or in Spanish. Or 988lifeline.org. You can talk to somebody in an online forum. Look for local options. Email me, and we can chat as well. As I say at the end of every show, life is a marathon. Don't make it a sprint. Stay limber, stay hydrated, stay on task for all the things you're here to do. It's more than just me being selfish and needing people to watch my videos and listen to my audios. As a person who deals directly with depression, in fact, I had a literal discussion with my doctor yesterday about how well or not well I'm handling it. In some cases, it's not as well as I should. I know exactly what it's like to feel like you're at your wit's ends and nothing is going to work. And so, let me tell you, a conversation is a way to get started to find things that will work. If you're feeling in any way, 988 on your cell phone. With that, I've already said the catchphrase. I love you guys. I mean it so much. What 12 stories will make the biggest impact for next week in the roundup? And what stories throughout the week will you guys deem as conversation to get us to there? Follow us on our feeds. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Facebook and X to get the daily show as it comes down your feed, which is Things You Might Have Heard. And make sure you're watching on the weekends to see what stories made the biggest impact, what stories caught my attention the most on the weekly roundup. From the Conversation Project, brought to you by More Better Media, LLC.